Hey guys, so I just got the Galaxy S23 Ultra in the studio and almost immediately I took it outside for a night shoot. Not only because I wanted to try the 100 times zoom moonshot, but because I wanted to see how much difference the new 200 megapixel camera is gonna make in challenging scenarios, especially in the dark. And this is a big one because in spite of all the internal upgrades over the S22 Ultra, from what I could gather from social media, many people are more interested in whether that new 200 megapixel camera is really gonna take better pictures. Spoiler alert, yes and no. I'm going to compare it against the iPhone 14 Pro because I have been daily driving the iPhone 14 and the iPhone 14 Pro also shoots great pictures at night. And then we're going to compare their daytime performance just to see if the S23 Ultra takes better pictures overall. In case you're wondering about this cap, it's because my hair got destroyed at the barber and, well, it looks really embarrassing. Anyway, the most important thing that you need to know about the 200 megapixel camera is that in the dark, it does not actually shoot at 200 megapixels. It shoots at 50 megapixels with 4 times pixel binning. This means that the sensor is combining pixels in order to capture more light. Without that, as you can see in this side-by-side comparison, there is a huge difference in terms of detail and noise level. This is because the information captured by the extra pixels on the S23 Ultra gives the NPU a lot more information to work with, resulting in clean, well-exposed pictures at night. If you compare it to the iPhone, shooting 48 megapixel raw images, the S23 Ultra seems to be less noisy, exposing the scene more evenly across the picture. And it does also look more natural looking, especially in areas with foliage. I noticed that the iPhone applies a lot more sharpening in those areas, which makes the image look over-processed, while the picture from the S23 Ultra has a softer feel, which looks closer to DSLR quality. So, the S23 Ultra takes better pictures than the iPhone 14 Pro, right? Well, not really. It's when you pay closer attention when you begin to see where the iPhone is actually better. Zooming into the image, you can see that the iPhone is able to capture lines in the image that appear like blotches on the S23 Ultra. In this other image, you can also see the railings looking more defined, whereas on the S23 Ultra, it's not only blurry, but has a lot of chromatic aberration. So, on the S23 Ultra, you get pictures that look clean and sharp, but it's over-processed to the point that little details of the picture can appear wrong if you zoom into the image. Now, even though it doesn't look as detailed, smooth, and vibrant as the S23 Ultra, the iPhone 14 Pro's image integrity is better. In terms of color accuracy, I also feel that the S23 Ultra looks a little too bright and saturated. Now, this is something that can be fixed in post, but right off the bat, pictures shot on the iPhone look more color accurate. Take for example this image that was shot indoors. The burger shot on the S23 Ultra looks more vibrant and delicious, but in fact, to my eyes, the iPhone's burger was more color accurate, even though it looked more dull compared to the S23 Ultra's burger. When shooting videos, I think the iPhone 14 Pro takes the cake easily. Its stabilization is far better than the S23 Ultra's. Even at max zoom, videos shot on the iPhone looks a lot more stable than the S23 Ultra. Also, I noticed the Ultra's mic pickup as you're zooming in is not as clean as on the iPhone, and it was picking up more of the echo and less of my voice. I'm just walking naturally, and the stabilization is still pretty good at 1 times. Okay, let's go to 10 times zoom. Honestly, if it's super stable at 10 times zoom, That'd be awesome, but I don't think that's gonna happen. Not with a phone camera. At one-time zoom, you can start to see some of that blooming getting under control. So the 14 Pro seems to handle exposure better at one-time zoom. Let's see how it performs at 9 times. The Galaxy was horrible at 10 times zoom. This is 9 times on the iPhone 14 Pro. It only goes up to that point. But I think it handles stabilization better actually than the Galaxy S23 Ultra. It's not a deal breaker for most people, just something to think about in case you need to zoom in when shooting vlogs. When shooting pictures in the day, that is when you can utilize the S23 Ultra's full 200 megapixel sensor. Pictures shot on the S23 Ultra look vibrant and detailed, and when shooting greenery, the foliage looks softer and more pleasing than on the iPhone. But in terms of color accuracy, the iPhone 14 Pro is a lot closer to what my eyes were seeing. Also, it seems that the iPhone's able to capture little nuances in the picture, like the reflection of light of the leaves of trees, whereas on the S23 Ultra, it simply wasn't there. The trees look a lot flatter in texture. I think the S23 Ultra takes great pictures in the day, but I feel that pictures on the iPhone 14 Pro look more lifelike. Same goes for selfies. The S23 Ultra applies more saturated color while reducing highlights and a heavy dose of skin smoothing. But the iPhone 14 Pro applies none of that at all. So it doesn't try to hide my horrible complexion. And yes, big review, this is what happened to my hair. I told the girl I wanted this, but I got this instead. Like, how, right? Anyway, back to the selfies. Take a look at how the clouds look more vibrant on the iPhone 14 Pro's picture, which is closer to what my eyes were actually seeing compared to the flatness of the S23 Ultra's selfie shot. If I were to sum everything up, I'd say that what the iPhone 14 Pro is going for is a more true-to-life picture, whereas the S23 Ultra's focus is different. Instead of going for realism, the S23 Ultra is massaging the pictures to make them look more beautiful automatically, whether it be day or night shots. Now, some people think that's a good thing because they don't have to edit as much in post.